Good morning. Darla real estate agent with Real Broker. Let's talk about a very common situation in that lots of times people want to buy another home, a different home. They have to move for whatever the case may be, but they have to sell the house that they're living in order to buy the next home. Now, there are quite a few people, I believe, that have the misconception that if you have a mortgage on your home, you can't sell it and buy another one. Listen, that's absolutely the furthest thing from the truth. It happens every single day where people still owe plenty of money on their current home, but for whatever the reason may be, there's so many reasons to move. They want to buy their next home. So if you ever look online and you see the words contingent, that means that there is a contingent sale on the new house. So for example, I have a house listed right now, and it is, if you look it up online, it probably says either contingent or it says active contingent. Now, some websites, it may actually say pending. But what it basically means is that the person that has a contract on that house has to sell their current home in order to buy this home. And so when you are having to sell your current home to buy another home, you can submit an offer on a house that you want to buy, and it's absolutely contingent on the sale of your home. Now, another contingency could be that you have land that you have to sell in order to buy a home. That could be a contingency as well. And so what happens is it's contingent. So the contract that we have on our house, on a house that I have listed right now, it is set to close on or before the end of December, which means that the seller also is working hard to get their house under contract in time so that both of them could close before the end of the year. So listen, that's it's a stressful situation to be in for buyers, especially if you're really needing to sell and really wanting to buy. Listen, lots of times people don't necessarily need to, but they want to. So when you need to, that's a different stress level than if you just want to do it. The want is very common. The need is more stressful. And so the seller, once they accept a contingent offer, the seller has the right to decide, are they going to continue to allow showings of the home? They don't have to if they don't want to, especially if they feel like it's a really strong offer. But most of the time, I will say to the seller, you still should allow showings. And what happens is, if the potential buyer who has the contingencies house is not under contract, and the sellers get a new offer from a new set of buyers who do not have anything to sell in order to buy, the seller then has to give the buyer X amount of days to remove the contingency. Most of the time it's 72 hours. So let's just say the seller of this house that's under the contingency gets an offer from a buyer. The buyer wants to buy the house. The seller likes the offer. They are not contingent on buying anything. The seller then gives the buyer 72 hours to remove the contingency. If the buyer cannot remove the contingency, then the seller has the right to cancel that contract and accept the next offer. So it's, there are lots of pros and cons to it. Every situation is totally different. Lots of times when a house first hits the market for sale, sellers are probably less likely to accept a contingent offer because they don't want to have to wait, because that's a big risk. Because what if the buyer's house never goes under contract, right? Or what if it takes a long time to go into contract. It's just more of a waiting game, where if a seller accepts an offer from a buyer and it's not contingent, most of the time closing happens within 4 to 6 weeks, right? That's most of the time. That's the most common time frame. Whereas if you're accepting a contingent offer, it's just you're at the mercy of how quickly is that buyer's house going to then go into contract, and it's a domino effect. And most of the time what happens is, when and if it goes under contract, those closings are scheduled back to back, so that the buyer uses the proceeds from the sale of that home to buy the next home. So it's doable. It is sometimes a very stressful situation, especially if it's a buyer who absolutely needs to sell in order to buy. It's not as stressful if it's just somebody. Lots of times people will call me and go, look, I don't even know if I want to sell my house, but if you can get this amount of money for it, then I'd be willing to downsize, or I'd be willing to move, or whatever the case may be. Sometimes it's just a game, just to see if it can be done, right? Sometimes it's not stressful. Lots of times it is. But when you are online and you see something that says either active contingent or contingent, it means that the contract closing is contingent on something. It's probably the sale of a house, the sale of land, the sale of something that needs to happen for that person to be able to close on that transaction. If you have any questions about contingencies, if you're thinking about selling and you want to buy but you have to sell first, I do this every day. I work with people every day that have to do that. It's absolutely doable, and it can be a little bit less stressful if you have a real estate agent in the loop that knows what they're doing, right? So really be thinking about who in your community do you know, like, and trust, and who closes lots and lots and lots of transactions. That's the person that you want to help you. If there is no one in your community, give me a call. I'd love to help you. I can list houses anywhere in Louisiana. If you have any questions real estate related, remember there are no dumb questions. Ask your questions. That's our job, is to answer questions. Y'all have a great week. Take care. I'd love to have a conversation with you. You can message me, call me, text me anytime. Take care.